All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to be representing relations. Remember, when we begin this, keep in mind the idea of a function. You have seen this before, hopefully, and when we talk about a relation, think of it as a relationship between two things. So let's go ahead and dive right in. The first relationship that we're going to talk about is the table. And if you notice, the table in this case is running vertically. I want you to keep in mind that tables can also run horizontally, like so. We have x and y this way. So x is either going to be on the left or the top of the table, depending on which direction it's being, laid down. Y is going to be on the right or on the bottom. Okay? Remember, in this case, this represents ordered pairs. So we have x and y to create ordered pairs. So the relationship we're talking about here is between x and y. So this is one way to represent a relation. Let's continue to look at some others. A table would represent those relationships. Here we have x and y. X and y can be called different things. These are your x values would be the input, while the y would be an output. If you notice, there's a relationship there. X gets input, y gets output. Then we would have domain and range, which we'll spend some more time on later, but this is vocabulary important. When we talk about x values, remember the x's run on a coordinate plane left and right, so horizontal, while the y values run vertically. We can also call the x values the independent variable, while the y would be the dependent. Sorry, this box is awfully small for me. So independent would be the input, so you put it in, while the output would be the y, which means the y depends on what you input, or the y depends on what is the independent, or what stands alone. These are all just different vocabulary words to represent x and y. And then, now this is what we call a mapping. When we have mappings, it's like two bubbles with arrows that connect them. This is also creating ordered pairs. So the x is on the left while the y is on the right. And we usually put this in ascending order, so least to greatest. We do not repeat values, or no repeats, I guess would be the way, and we map with arrows. So in this case, we have an ordered pair. So the -7 is in the x bubble, while these values are in the y. So we would have an ordered pair of -7, 2. Because the arrow connects to the 2, we would have an ordered pair of 0, 2. And then we would have an ordered pair of 3, 1, because the arrows are connecting those values. So again, the x being the independent value and y being the dependent. X is the input, y is the output. You could think of the arrows as producing that output. I'm talking with my hands and y'all can't see me, and I think it's, we can use mappings. All right, now equations also have a relationship between the x and the y. And in this case, the x would be our input and y would be the output. We can still use words like independent, domain and range and all of that as well. In this case, though, we're going to use input and output. An equation. Now, when we talk about graphs, I mentioned it earlier, the x values, or the domain, are going to be the horizontal values. So we're talking about these values that run left and right. Those would be your x values, domain, and so on. While the y values are vertical, those values run up and down, so these would be your y. I'm going to ask you to go ahead and sketch. You don't have to draw the whole graph. Let's go ahead and just sketch the x and y axis for your nodes. And this should be a C right here. It looks like an R. So the vertical. Okay. Last, and of course, you make sure you're pausing these videos while you're taking a graph, notes. And last but not least, these are ordered pairs. We've already kind of talked about those. If you notice, there are brackets and parentheses. We use the brackets. That is not going to work. I usually just draw a squiggle because I cannot draw those brackets to save my life. So brackets with parentheses around the ordered pairs and then a comma between the ordered pairs. So we would have x, comma, y. And then, of course, if there is more than one ordered pair, we put those brackets around there. Again, if you can't draw the brackets, that is totally fine. Clearly, I am unable to do that as well. So this is representing relations. So there are different relationships that we can represent. Just to recap, order of pairs,